Hey, hi everyone, this is Mukesh Otwani from learn-automation.com. Today in this lecture, we are going to talk about constructor in Java. So till now, we have published many videos on Java, but till now we have not discussed about the constructor. So let's start with constructor, and I will also talk about a different type of constructor. What do you mean by constructor overloading? So guys, this is one of the frequently asked question in interviews as well, like what is constructor overloading, how do you override the constructor, and where do you use actually this concept in real time. Okay, so once we move forward, I will also show you how actually this constructor overloading works in real time scenarios. So I will be taking one Selenium example where Selenium guys use constructor overloading concept, and it's very interesting and one of the easiest concept in Java. So before we start, let's talk about what exactly is constructor. So as the name says, it will construct the values. Okay, so now in simple words, constructor is nothing but a set of statements or a block of code which actually we will use to construct the values. Or if we don't want to say construct, we'll say we will initialize the values. Okay, so technical definition of constructor will be constructor is a block of code which is used to initialize the values. Okay, so don't get worried about the definition part as of now. Once we move forward, once we discuss about the actual implementation of the constructor, you will get the real picture, and then you can come back to this slide and you can relate easily. So just give me a couple of minutes. Within few minutes all your doubts will be cleared. So before we move forward to the programming, let me talk about few points that you need to remember while creating a constructor. So the first point says constructor should have as the same name as the class name. Okay, so let's say if you're creating one class called Mukesh, so constructor name should be Mukesh. You cannot give any other name. It has to be same as class name. Constructor does not have any return type, not even void. Okay, so you cannot say public void Mukesh. It has to be public or Mukesh. Okay, we can play with the public and private as well. That's a different theory altogether. But for the time being, constructor does not have any return type, not even void. Third thing, constructor you don't have to invoke, okay, separately. It will get invoked once you create object. So constructor will get called as soon as you create object, but for the method we need to call them explicitly. So the fourth point is little technical, so if you are not technically sound or if you don't know in depth about Java, then this point you will not be able to connect easily, but that's fine. Once you move forward you will understand this. So fourth point says constructor in Java cannot be final, cannot be static, cannot be abstract and synchronized. Okay, if you don't understand fourth point, that's fine. Let's focus on the first 3 points. Should have the same name as class name, does not have return type, and it will get invoked automatically. So this is just one diagram which I want to show you the difference between method and constructor, because many times people get confused because it is similar to method, right? But there's a minor difference. As you can see on the left hand side, method has a different name, but constructor has the same name as the class name. And the constructor, you can see the bank project, here also bank project. Here we have a return type, here we don't have return type. Okay, so this is like you can easily relate method versus constructor. Although method also set of statements, right, series of statement, block of code. Constructor also does the same thing, but for the constructor you don't have to call them explicitly. It will get called the moment you create object. Guys, this is one of the most important part of the constructor, that we have two type of constructor. One is parameterized constructor, one is non-parameterized constructor. So in simple words, you can play with the words. So let's keep it default constructor, which we will call as a no argument constructor. Second, we will call this as a parameterized constructor, as the name says, constructor with some parameters, or you can say argument. Okay, so we'll talk about both type of constructor in this video, and we'll talk about the differences as well. Okay, so now the word comes constructor overloading. Now constructor overloading is a part of compile time polymorphism. Guys, we already discussed this part in one of my previous video, which I will link in this video. So you will find the link in the description. So we discussed about what is polymorphism in Java and how do we use it, right? So in the polymorphism, we discussed about two type of compile time polymorphism, runtime polymorphism. In compile time, we discussed about method overloading, and that video also I will link. Second is constructor overloading. So this is the second part, or I will say the continuous of compile time polymorphism. Now let's talk about what is constructor overloading. As the name says, overloading. When you use the same constructor multiple times with different signature, it will call as a constructor overloading. Now what do you mean by signature? Signature is consisting of three things: number of argument, type of argument, order of argument. Don't worry, let me show you through a diagram and let me show you through a real code, then you will understand. But in simple words, when you use the constructor multiple time with different arguments, it is constructor overloading. Okay, number of argument, type of argument, order of argument. One clear example is this. Suppose I have a class called class bank project. So if I create one constructor, you can see without argument, this is with one argument, this is with two argument, this is with two argument, but as you can see we have changed the order, right? So this is called constructor overloading when we use one constructor but with different arguments. Very interesting concept and real time usage I will show you in Selenium. The first line of Selenium itself has the constructor overloading concept. Very interesting. So let's see one by one. Just to demonstrate this example, I already have a project called Java tutorial for Selenium. Let me create a new package for this example and I will say constructor demo. And let me create one class called, let's say, student, so that everybody can relate. Now when you create a student class, now if I create public static void main, because that is what the entry point, right? So I will say public static void main string args. Perfect. Now if I create one method called public void display result, okay, so this particular method is going to display the result. So let's say I will say marks is, so let's say 890 marks. Okay, now I will also create a constructor now. So constructor rules we have seen, it has to be same name as class name. So I will give as student and let's finish the constructor. Okay, so public, we do not have any return type and it has the same name as class name. What if I give a different name? Let's say if I give student1, it is not accepting, it is considering this as a method. If it is a method, we have to make it, or we have to add a return type. So make sure it has the same name as class name. Now let me just add one statement called, hey, welcome to school. Okay, so let me run this code as of now. Okay, no console output. Why? Because public static void main is totally blank. We don't have any entry point, we don't have any exit point, so it is, not executing constructor plus method. Now you can easily relate when I say constructor will get invoked automatically as soon as create object. As of now we have not created any object, so it is not going to call any constructor. Now let me create object. So guys, if you don't know how to create object, I will recommend you to watch my previous videos where we discussed about how to create class, how to create object, how to call the methods. So this is the syntax, guys. Class name, then object name equal to new keyword, and again class name followed by parenthesis and semicolon. Now let me run this. I'm not calling method, I'm just creating object, and you will see the moment I create object, my constructor is getting called and say, hey, welcome to the school. Now if I say with the help of this obj1 dot, you can see I'm getting this method called display result. So method I have to call explicitly with the help of object if it is non-static, right? But for constructor we don't have to call. Okay, perfect. Now what about constructor overloading? So now Java says if you use same constructor again, definitely you are going to get error, and it says duplicate method student in type student, because we have the same name, same argument. Java says you need to change the signature number of argument first of all. So let's say I will take the school name. So now you can see it is not throwing any error because number of argument has changed. Okay. Second constructor, if I create one more constructor, this time you can see now these two constructors are getting conflict, right? So if I change this to another parameter with integer, okay, so now this also have one argument, but this was string, this is int. So even number of argument is same, but type of argument has changed. So this is also constructor overloading. Now one more. What if I change, let me just add two arguments first of all. Okay, school name and let's say the ranking. Fine. Now it was 0, then we made one argument. This is also one argument but with different type. But the third constructor or the fourth constructor had two argument. This is also two argument, this is also two argument. But if you see, if I change the order of argument, it will still consider this as a constructor, valid constructor. So this is now one constructor we have overloaded 4 times, right? Number of argument, type of argument, order of argument. This is called constructor overloading. Now how do you call this? Okay, let's run this. Every time it is going to run only this particular constructor because here we are passing 0 argument. So now let's say if I want to call this constructor, okay, so definitely I need to pass this argument, then only we can call this constructor. So while creating object, if I pass school name, then this constructor will be called. For example, if I create, if I pass one argument, let's say DPS, Delhi Public School, I want this DPS, okay, will be passed here, and I want to print the school name here. So I will say welcome to, I will just do a string concatenation. Okay, so whatever school name we will be getting from constructor, we will be adding here. So now at the time of running this code itself, I know which constructor will be called, right? I know constructor with one string argument will be called. So at the time of compilation, I know. So this is known as compile time polymorphism. Runtime polymorphism, we don't know, depends on the reference, we will get the result. But here in compile time polymorphism, with the help of parameter itself, we can identify. So this known as compile time polymorphism. Let me run this. You can see welcome to DPS school. Maybe I can just add one space so it should look little clear. Yes. Now what if I want to give some rank? Let's say welcome to school, which okay. So now if you see this part, I can pass integer argument, right? And that integer we can pass it here. For example, let's say, but let me show you one interesting thing. Can you see now at the time of creating itself, while creating object itself, it is giving me 5 different options. It is asking me to create a default constructor, calling the default constructor with integer, string, and string integer. So let's say this time I want to pass first. Okay, so now this we need to add it here, right? So this I will add here. So again, I know when I'm passing integer argument, this will be received here, and that I will be adding with string. So when I run this, okay, so now this is clear. Now what about the constructor value part? Okay, so if you remember, we discussed constructor main functionality, or the main part is to initialize the values, right? So right now if you see, marks are 19, but there should be some default value, right? Now if I don't want to hard code this value, let's say the marks will be calculated based on the students different subjects, okay, and finally the if I say the result of final marks, okay, so final marks will be calculated based on the different subjects numbers, and after the calculation the final marks or the result will be calculated, correct? But if you see, we should also have some default value. So let's say if I say the result is some default value, so default value obviously it will be 0, but right now if I print this, okay, it's 0. Why it is 0 right now? Because it's a global variable, and by default global variable will initialize with the default value. So right now it's an integer. For integer, default value is 0, so which we are getting here. Now interesting part, how we can initialize the value. So now instead of using this example, now let's create another example now, which is mainly for the values. So in this example, the class name I will change to marks, okay, and let me delete all the constructors. So the first example which I showed you, that was mainly to show you the constructor part, constructor overloading. Now this example is how to initialize the values, okay. So this has the default 0. Now this also I will remove, okay, let's keep it marks, and here the text I would change to total marks plus whatever marks we will get. Perfect. And if you don't want to print here, that's fine, you can print in the display method. Now whatever marks we will get, we need to assign it here, okay. So we will say result equal to marks. Now while creating object, you can pass marks m equal to new marks, and I will say, let's say 60. So 60 will be stored into this variable. This variable we are initializing, we are assigning it to result variable, which is this. So when you call this method, it will always get the latest value, okay. For example, if I call m.display results, the marks will be 60 this time, correct. Now if I give as 99 marks, so this will be updated to the result variable that we're using. So constructor main task to initialize the values, okay. So whatever variables you have, they definitely will have some default values. So in constructor, you can either keep the default values or the values which you want to initialize, okay. I hope it is clear. So we discussed about the 2 points, constructor overloading and how to initialize the values. And now the main part, how do we use, or where do we use this constructor overloading concept? For that, let me show you another class, and I will give this name as real-time scenario. Those who have not configured Selenium, that's fine. Once you move forward, definitely you will get to know about this part. Just for the time being, if I show you one example, web driver equal to new Chrome driver. So can you see this? This is actually Selenium library, guys. So in Selenium, when you create object, okay, when you start a browser, it is asking you multiple options. So when you say default one, so this one will start a default Chrome session with default values with some default settings. but when you create Chrome driver with some specific Chrome driver service, so this Chrome will start with some specific service. I hope you are able to catch my point. When I start Chrome with Chrome options, so again, whatever options we will give based on our parameters, it will start the Chrome driver. And if you don't pass anything, it has to start the default browser with default values. Okay. So if I give you one example, I'm creating 3 instances. Don't worry about this, guys. Just focus on the principle as of now. If I create new Chrome options dot set headless to true, let's take only 2 because ultimately third also will be same. So this driver will have the default Chrome, but this driver 1 will run in a headless mode. How it is possible? Because we are passing this headless option in the constructor. And now if you see, this is the source code, guys. This source code I will explain in the next video. How does it work? But if you are able to understand this point, it means you are clear with the constructor concept. This constructor is calling with the default values, which is getting initialized the moment you call Chrome driver. But this constructor is getting initialized with some specific values which are telling or passing, and based on your parameters it will start the session. Okay, so I hope it is clear for you, and if you still have any questions or you want to discuss anything, let me know in the comment section. And if you have any other query, feel free to send an email to my email, which is mukesh.otwani@learn-automation.com. If you like this video, share with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye bye.